Well, greetings, amazing students, and welcome back to another week for GST060 Academic Success Seminar. It's a pleasure to bring this content to you for this recorded lecture. This week, we're going to have a short lecture, sweet lecture. We'll keep it short and sweet. And the information I'm going to share for you will draw upon some things for you to consider in regards to developing the characteristics of who you want to become. So, I'd like for us to draw upon, you all have these amazing goals based on the majors and the areas in which you've chosen to study. There was something that brought you to CBU, not only for your education, but for the career you want to pursue. Go even deeper than that, you chose a career in a particular discipline because you want to make a difference and an impact in this world. And so that came from somewhere, right? These characteristics that you are bringing to your studies every day, they came from somewhere, and they're helping to shape who you want to become in your future lives as professionals. I'd like to spend just a short period of time drawing into that today. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually share a little bit about my own background so you have some more information about me, because that shaped who I wanted to become in my life professionally and personally, as a father, as a husband, as a professional, in the hopes that maybe you might do some own reflection for yourself upon who you want to become and where do those values or characteristics come from. Okay. Now, again, just a reminder, you'll share some takeaways from that, from today's lecture in your journals for this week. And you'll share those with me so that I can see, right, what you're grabbing onto this week in terms of our lecture content. So for me, this notion of who I want to become, right, really came from my family background. An ethos, this word ethos right here, ethos is just a fancy way of saying it's a code that we live by. Let me move my face over here really quickly so you can see these pictures. But the ethos is the code that we live by that sort of dictates for us our motivation for why we live our purpose, why we are who we are, why we do what we do, why we believe what we believe. And for me, the origin of my ethos very much came from two areas, my faith and my family. And I've shared a lot about, my faith and my faith journey over this past semester with you. And I'd like to share a little bit about me and my family, who also shaped my own characteristics and who I wanted to become. The pictures you see here, these are my grandparents on my mother's side, and that's me, very little right there. My grandfather, Juan Arnulfo Gonzalez, and my grandmother, Elena, her maiden name was Polo, but Elena Gonzalez here. Okay, so they migrated from Chihuahua, Mexico in the 1950s and came to the US and settled in East LA. These are my grandparents on my father's side. This is Salvador, Mexico here. He is actually Filipino from Cavite City, joined the Navy in the Philippines and traveled to the US. He was stationed in Pearl Harbor in Florida. And I'm sorry, not Pearl Harbor. He was stationed in Florida. My apologies for that. And he met my grandmother there in Florida, in Pensacola, Florida, at the Navy base. This is my grandmother, Pauline, okay? And her maiden name was Hogue, but Pauline. And this is my family here, my wife, Ruby Mexico. Her name was Alamillo, and so her family immigrated from Mexico, and so she is of Mexican descent. And my daughter Z, who's a blend, obviously, of both of us. So I'm this interesting blend here of Mexican, Filipino. My grandma was a mix of Creole and Native American, so I'm a blend of all these things. But really, in common, both families immigrated to the U.S. in the hopes of a better life for themselves and for their children. This name, Mexico, some of you may be surprised that there's a Filipino out there named Mexico in the Philippines. There's quite a few of them. And it comes from this notion of when Mexico was conquered by the Spaniards, you actually pronounce the X as a she name, a she sound. So it used to be Mexico, okay, or Mexicas. And so the Spaniards, they had a tough time with the X and said, let's just change it to a J. So they said Mexico. And so that's where the origins of that name come from. Now, early on, I used to think and struggle with my identity, thinking, are there any other Mexican and Filipino blends out there? I thought to myself, this is an odd combination. I wonder if there's any more people out there like me, only to discover in my high school years, yes, there's actually a term for it. We're called Mexipinos, this mix of Mexicans and Filipinos. And it's not uncommon for this Mexican-Filipino blend to occur, like what happened with my parents. because it tended to be that when Mexicans and Filipinos immigrated to the United States, they settled in similar areas. And so the family here, this Filipino side of the family, they participate in what we call the Great Migration. They moved from Pensacola, Florida, from the south to Los Angeles. They settled in Compton. My family here on the Mexican side settled in East LA. They spend time in close quarters with one another. So it was only natural that with so many Mexicans and Filipinos living close to one another, they would meet one another, go to church, eat at the same restaurants, pray together, hang out together, and marry eventually. And so that's the blend that I had here, right? And so for many of you, I want you to kind of reflect on, where'd your family of origin come from? What brought them here to the US for those that immigrated? For those of you who had family who have been here in the United States for generations, regardless of if it's only been 1 year or generations of family members, many of us will recognize if we asked our grandparents, our great grandparents, why? Why did you come to the United States? Many would say our ancestors suffered, right? So that the next generation wouldn't have to. And so for my grandparents here, they worked hard lives. My grandfather worked for the Department of Water and Power. My grandmother became a nurse. My grandfather worked in the Navy and he worked 3 jobs as a cook later on when he exited the Navy. My grandmother worked in education as well. And so all of these folks, they poured into us, right? If you think about your grandparents or your parents who are pouring into you at this moment, working hard, long hours for short pay is what we call it, right? With the intent to provide you with a better life for you and for your children, that's been the goal. And so we have something in common. There's a scripture verse where people were analyzing Jesus, and it says that Jesus, came from Nazareth. Nazareth was seen as the hood back in the day. It was another Compton. It was another East LA. And so there's a scripture verse in there that says nothing good could ever come from Nazareth, right? What good could come from a kid from the hood, from the barrio, right? And it turns out for my family, toiling for generations to get my generation, me, where I am today, and my child Z, where she is today, it turns out good things, they do come from Nazareth, right? So I want to share with you some thoughts to consider for you to reflect upon in your own life as I reflect on mine. Who in your life do you look up to? Is that your grandparents, your parents, and why? Right? Maybe it's a friend of the family, maybe it's an auntie or an uncle, whatever the case is, but who do you look up to in life and why? What characteristics do they possess that you admire? For me, my grandparents, it was their work ethic. It's how hard they worked. It was also the love that they shared for us, this sort of boundless love and compassion for who we are and what we were going through in our lives. I knew I could always talk to my grandparents no matter what was going on in my life. They always had an open ear to me, and that ear was always coming from a place of love, right? And who have influenced you in your worldview and your behaviors? Right? Who has shaped your understanding of the world? Who has helped you breathe life into you, spoke positively of you, told you you could be whatever you want to be? Who is that for you in your life, right? I'd like you to just kind of close your eyes and picture that. Who are those people? Close your eyes and maybe you'll see, right, the face of your grandparents, the face of your parents, the face of an auntie and uncle, a close friend. Those are the people who have always believed in you boundlessly, right? And yet, despite all of that, sometimes we don't always feel like we're worthy of that unconditional love. Sometimes we don't always feel like we're worthy of the success that comes our way, and the opportunities that have come our way at the result of others that have been toiling, right, for our success for generations to come. The term for that, this feeling of doubt in spite of evidence of success, like I said in our first week, was what? Imposter syndrome, right? Imposter syndrome is a real thing. No matter how much people tell us that we're beautiful, that they love us, that they care for us and who we are, that we don't need to change anything about ourselves. They love us as we are. It's hard for us to believe that. Right? And so I wanted to leave you with this quick message of inspiration for you as a reminder of how God sees us. So, of course, this isn't God that's here, right? Some of you may remember the show Mr. Rogers, and this is Fred Rogers from his show, Won't You Be My Neighbor? And Fred Rogers was a child psychologist. He was also an ordained minister, okay? And he was a person of God. He held faith, right? And so Fred Rogers, he brought a lot of his Presbyterian minister background, his faith integration. He embedded some of that into his weekly shows. Now, he didn't do that explicitly. He didn't say that's where it was coming from. But if you listen carefully, you can see the beautiful message that he shares about how he sees people and tries to see people the way God sees them, by continuously messaging this notion of it's you that I like, right? You at the core, you of who you are. And so this is one of my favorite songs that Fred Rogers sang on the show. It's called It's You I Like. And I want to play this song for you really quickly. And I want you to listen to the lyrics. I'm going to keep these lyrics up after I start the video here. I'm going to play this song, and then what I would like you to do is listen to the lyrics. Don't listen to them as Fred Rogers is singing to you. Listen to them as if God is speaking to you, telling you, it's you I like. I need you to believe that, right? I love you unconditionally. I believe in you boundlessly, right? There's nothing that I don't think you're capable of, but I need you to believe that first. And so I'm going to play this song for you and keep these lyrics up so you can hear this message from God to you, communicating to you, it's you that I like.
It's you I like. It's not the things you wear. It's not the way you do your hair. But it's you I like. The way you are right now, way down deep inside you. It's not the things that hide you. It's not your toys, they're just beside you. But it's you I like. Every part of you, your skin, your eyes, your feelings, whether old or new. And I hope that you remember, even when you're feeling blue, that it's you I like. It's you yourself, it's you, it's you, it's you I like.
All right, that was the cover to the song It's You I Like by Fred Rogers. And I thought it was just a beautiful message that I wanted to share with you today, that no matter where you are in the course of your studies, what you've been going through and overcoming this semester, you have persisted, right? You have evidence of success. You are still here. And so if you're still hearing those messages in your mind, right, those negative voices telling you that you're not smart enough or rich enough or whatever the case is, right, to continue in your studies, God is not saying that. God is saying, it's you that I like. You are exactly what I had in mind when I made you, right? So I hope that you will consider that, right, as you reflect upon your own life and who has inspired you in your life, who has shaped you into who you are, and has really contributed to why you want to do what you're doing. There is a quote from Fred Rogers, which is really beautiful, and I'd like to do an activity with you right now. I'd like for you again, one more time, close your eyes, and I'd like for you to picture that person, that special person in your life who you love deeply, that person who has always spoken hope into your life, who has always believed in you, who has always loved you unconditionally. I'd like you to just fixate on their face. Look at their face as you close your eyes. Maybe picture a couple of words of inspiration that they've said to you. And as you're picturing that person, I'd like to read this quote to you by Fred Rogers. From the time you were very little, you have had people who have smiled you into smiling, People have you talked you into talking, sung you into singing, and loved you into loving. So, on this extra special day, let's take some time to think of those extra special people. Some of them may be right here, some may be far away, some may even be in heaven. No matter where they are, deep down, you know they've always wanted what's best for you. They've always cared for you beyond measure and have encouraged you to be true to the best within you. Let's just take a moment of silence to think about those people right now. My hope is that as you take this moment, right, to think about those people that have poured into you in your life, to know that the vision that they had for you, the belief that they have for you, the love that they poured into you, it's unconditional. No one can take that away. Okay? All right. Now, that's all I've got for you today. I told you, I promised you it was going to be short and sweet. I want to just leave you with a couple of things to think about. And so this week, you've got your reflection that you're doing to me, your journal, just like normal. You'll answer these questions that are posted on Blackboard. Go ahead and respond to those, send those to me. I can't wait to read them and comment on them. And I'll, of course, float some points your way as well for participating in this week's assignment. I want to thank you all deeply for tuning in and participating. If you need anything, you know how to get a hold of me. Thank you all so much. God bless.